Greetings. My name is Praful Patel, better known as one of Surinder's biggest fans. I'm honored that Surinder's family has given me the task of welcoming you all to this event to bid farewell to Surinder and celebrate his life. I'm very pleased to welcome his family and friends from all over the world, those gathered here today, as well as those participating via internet, including from Nairobi, London, Germany, Australia, Canada, Tenerife, and Dallas, Texas. Let us begin with prayers.
भावे को भी कह कर जो कितना भी नया है जो तक कर दी मोने को जा मेरा दे पाए जुआ मुक्त काहे पाए तू भी तुम चलाएगा मान विषय प्रभाव सच स्वाय स्वाय नाय पाके पाव पार आगे मुझे दे दान रे दाता तेरे पैर की युद्ध सदवार ओके मोर मोरिया सुंदर प्यार मेरा सुनना बढ़िया विचार कभी आवे वो प्राणी मुक्तवा नर के वजन में सदा पुष्टिया भगवान जाए गीता न हुए अबे अपने से व्यक्त पाए भाव मन नानक गाविया घृणा गाविया सुनिया न रखिया भाव पर ऐसो कर जाए गुरु नाम गुरु वेद गुरु प्रया समाई गुरु ईश्वर गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु पार गुरु माई जे मोह जाना आखर नहीं कहना कर न जाई बुराई ते बुराई सब न दिया पाई दाता सोना न जाए इतना आजे तू भावन भाने के न करी जेठी सिर पाई का नंबर माने जाई मधुलन जुबार मान दे कुछ सुने बुराई ते बुराई सब न दिया पाई दाता सोना विसर न जाए ये जाए आज और सुनी हुए नवा प्रणाम जानिए ना चलना सब हुए नाम का तस्वीर चले कृष्ण नाम पूछे इदा तर की करो सिलो तरे नाम जड़ू मुझे गुण दिया मुझे ए हाथ न सुधे जिस गुण कोई करे सुना सुन के सोता सुना दर्द के आकाश सुना दी प्रोपाता सुना कोई न सके का नाम कुत्ता सा विगा सुना रूपा का सुना से परमाय सुना मसाला मंग सुना जो गुण के सुना सासु सुन नाद मुक्ता लगा सुने पापना सुने सत्संगों ज्ञान सुने अक्षर का स्नान सुने पढ़ पावे मान सुने लगे सत्य नाम मुक्ता विकास सुने रूपा प्रकाश सुने सदा देगा सुने से पीर पासा सुने देखा वेगा सुने अद्वैता नाम मुक्ता विकास सुने रूपा प्रकाश मने की का कहना जाए देखो प्रेम से बुझाए कागदर मन पर बात में कागद का विचार सलाम न कोई देखो मन है मन कोई मना सुतो है मन तुमने सरल मन की शुद्ध मना मन से काम काए मन तुमने सब न जाए ऐसा ना निरंतर कोई देखो मन जाने मन कोई मन मानता न पाए मन का सुख मना मन चला मन रंचित संबंध ऐसा ना निरंतर कोई देखो मन जाने मन कोई मना पावे मुक्तवा मन करवा सदा मना करे ताले कुछ मना ना होवे ना ऐसा नाम निरंतर कोई देखो मन जाने मन कोई पान प्रदान कुछ पार करके मान से सो है लगा जा संगा दुले के नाम देखो काय करे विचार करते का करना सुमा तो धर्म दया का संतोष का दया विसु देखो जय वश्या कृपा पिता पार करती मर प्रयाग और से पार करना कमजोर जी जा जंगल के नाम सदा लिखा वितना लिखा लिखाना कोई लिखा लिखा पिता कोई पिता का सवाल गुरु के पिता जाने पिता का सवाल को बात हुआ उसने वह तक दरिया उसका उनका विचार वर्ण जमाए पार जो तुझ भावे साई कली का उसका सनाम निरंकार सत्य प्रसन्न भाव संपूर्ण संतता हो संग्रह कोई पार संजो मंदे उदास संगमन दुनिया विचार संसदीय संप्रदाय संग सूर हो पक्षा समो निरायता तुझको का विचार वार्याम जाम एक हुआ दोदु पावे सही का विश्वास संभा संग गुरु का घोर संग छोड़ना घोर संग अमर बताए घोर संग पर जगमाए संपापी पर प्रजय संग में आत्मे विराय संग में कर भक्त संग निश्चित करे पावन विषय विचार वार्याम जाम एक हुआ जो तुझ भावे सही परि का दूसरा स्वावलंबन संतनाव संताव धर्म संतो असंख्य से पार हुए बिना की सारा अगली ज्ञान की पूरा मेरे गुरु मार्ग का सिद्ध प्रमाण इन विकट से नाम प्रमाण प्रतिपादिता पिता पिता नाम नाम को नाम तुझको नाम चावल नवाई दरबार जो तू भावे सही बलिकार तू सदा सलाम निरंकार पर्याप्त तुझे वाणी होते मुक्ति का पढ़ हुए देश तेरी मैं नानी कोई मुझे ते बता होए स्वस्थ्या पानी करवाओ सर समाज का बचाओ कंस में लाभ कौन चित्तम हुआ कौन सत्य मां कौन होया पार वेर ना पाएगा पर तीनों वेले कुरान ना पाओ भाग्य तेरे तो कुरान विद्वान तो जान दोनों कोई जाते ना सिद्धि को सदे अपने जान सोई प्रजा का निसलाई को निजा नाम जाकर सबको आते खुशियाना बड़ा सन बड़ी रानी का लगा मेहमान देखो आप जाने के ज्ञान सोए पाता ना बाबा का बोल बोल बाल के कहने वाला शास्त्रार ज्ञान देवा सुनि बात देखा वे मन के बोलना नाम बढ़ाया अपनी है आपे जाने हमें सदाई सुना भाई ज्ञान वापस सुना जाने संसार सुल्तान राजा की माता की तुलना हो गई तुलना विश्ले अंत सभी ज्ञान अंत बड़ा देव अंत को सुना अंत जावे नाम मंत्र अंत जावे किताब अंत जावे बार अंत काल कहते मिलाता कितना पाया जाए यो न जाने कोई बता दिया बता कोई बड़ा जाए बचा ना को जानो केवल चौबे को से तू जाने सोए देवरी आप मान की करूंगा बता कर ज्ञान का बड़ा जातो तुरंत आए कहते मुझे लोग पाल में नहीं जा कहते हम तुझे कार कहते न मुझे पाल के मुझ का लाए कहते धूप समाये केदार तेरी दरबार अंतलासी पाए कोई बुरा नहीं कोई देखो खाए जान पाए जान विद्या पाए आपे जाने आपे दिया कितने यीशु भग से सिंह सारा नाम पात साही पासा गुरु पारो पारी में ढालो जाए मुंगा भाई उल्ला समाए हम धर्म दीवान गुरु भगवान हम सीध बोले साथ कर भगवान का ज्ञान जाए आगे पहले लाए आगे मेरे पास पुराना के बड़े ज्ञान आगे बढ़े आगे इंद्र आगे वो पिता को इंद्र आगे सजा के सिद्ध का के आगे हमें आगे देवे आगे सुनने से ये आगे पाए के क्या करो जान कहने की जोड़ के काम न सके के देव धारा देव में नाम जान सच्चा सोने को आगे बोल विकार ताकि है सिरगा वाला सो घर के निंदा से संभाले बाजीना धने संगा करते बावन भाल के देगा पूरी सोया के देगा बनाले गावे तुम मोड़ पर सुंदर गावे रंगवार गावे जिंदुक जाने धर्म जाने गावे सब माले सोच का सवाले गावे निंदा संकट देते आदर नाले गावे से समाधि पर गाँव स्वामी चाले गाँव निधि सृजनों की गावे मित्राले गाँव पत्थर पर नदी सर जुग जुग भेजा वाले गावे मोनिया नमो सुरामस्याले गावे तुम पाए तेरे असर मित्राले गावे जो महापुरुषा गावे पानी चाले गावे कर गुंडा कर के धारे से जुग गावे जुग धाम के करे सारे और कितने गावे से मैं जितना अम्मा में क्या बिचारे सोई सोई सुरा से सारा सच्चा सब नहीं है ही होशी जाना जाने में चाहिए रंगी रंगी बातें कर सिवाय तुम पाई कर के अपना दिल दृष्टि बड़े आई बहुत सुना है सोई करसी उतना करना जाए सो पासा सान पासा काम कर जाए उनका संतोष पर चोरी जारी करे पूछ इनका का दुआरी का बिना प्रतीत आई बच्ची सारे मत में जीता धरती आदेश आदेश आलिया नीलिया ना देना पत तुझ के कोविश वो ज्ञान दिया प्रकार में करवा देना आत्मा पाति सदा के से रासा लोग लोग परिवार चलावे लगे हैं बाहर आदेश के आदेश आदमी ना तुझ के कोवे एक माई युद्ध आई तेरे प्रवान संसारी प्रभारी प्राणिमान युद्ध सागर के जिलाने पवन प्रमाण ओहो एक है उन्होंने नया है वो ताकि नाम में शिक्षा देश आदमी अनाद नाम में कोई आसन में जो प्रताप जिस पास हो गया करने के सुनिमान सत्य की सत्रिकार आदेश से आदेश आले मेरे अनाथ युद्ध में कोई बोला तो बोला कृष्ण सुनो मेरे पिता संत sermons that we have read. Now we will do the prayer. We request everybody to please stand.
सतनाम वाहिगुरु 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 अरदास ओंकार वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। श्री भगवती जी सहाय वार श्री भगवती जी की पासे दसवीं कृष्ण भगवती सब करे गुरु नानक के आए प्रभु उदास रामदास जी सहाय अर्जुन गोविंद सिंह श्री राय श्री कृष्ण के आज्ञा गुरु के सब जाय एक बहादुर सिमरिया कर्म दया विताय सताई में सहाय दसवें पातशाह साहब श्री गुरु गोबिंद जी महाराज सताई में सहाय संपाशन पवित्र आत्म जो तन साहिब श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी के पाठ दर्शन दीदार दाते अंतर पातशाह जी सारे बोलना जी वाहिगुरु कन्या प्यारे समासा जावे चाले मुक्ति समूह में नजर ना हो गया वण चकिया देख चलाई ते गवाही दे के पिता जना प्यारे चरण मोहिदा ते अंतर बोलना जी वाहिगुरु जिना सिंहासन में अंतर में सिस्ते बंद काय को के वन तत्व दिनाते चढ़े जा रहे चलाएंगे गुरुद्वारे की सेवा में कुर्बानी की थी तरने हारे सकी के साथ स्वासा से मिलाते मोहिदा ते अंतर बोलना जी वाहिगुरु पंजाब का सब गुरुद्वारे दा ते अंतर बोलना जी निमाने दे मान ताने दे तान के जो आश्रय आश्रय परिपूर्ण परमात्मा वाहिगुरु साहब जी धन साहब श्री गुरु साहब जी महाराज जी आप जी के चरणों में दोनों हाथ जोड़ अरदास विनती आपके हुक्म अनुसार राणा राव अंकुर है रना तुम फकीर वारी आपको अपनी कोई न बंदे तीर सब कुछ चे पासे जियो धन साहब श्री गुरु नानक देव जी महाराज जी आप जी के दर घर के जवान आप जी के प्यारे सिंह सुरिंदर सिंह जी सतगुरु जी जितने आप जी ने सेवक प्यारे विश्वास बख्शिश की किस्म भोगदे होया इस संसार यात्रा में संपूर्ण करके सतगुरु जी तिना दे सतगुरु जी पंज पुत्र शरीर का शरीर की अंतिम यात्रा संस्कार करने लिए सतगुरु से पातशाह जी समूह साथ संगत गुरु परिवार हाजिर होया सतगुरु जी आप जी आगे बख्शिश करो सेवक प्यारे की आत्मा सदैव पाले अपने चरणों में निवास कोशिश करना पर जन्म मरण निवार हार पर निवार जन्म अते वर्ण के चक्र तो पड़दे में सदैव चरणों में निवास कोशिश करना पीछे परिवार में आनंद दवा कोशिश करना परिवार से मेल पर अपना परिवार सुखता होने चढ़दे तो कोशिश करनी है सब कुछ से पास जी आप जी कृपा करो इसमें आज्ञा कोशिश करो सही प्यारे मिलो जिना मिले तेरे नाम ते जावे नानक नाम चढ़दे कला वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु बोले सुनिया सत श्री अकाल वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु
with the image of the smiling Surinder in our minds. Next on the program for this morning will be tributes from Surinder's close family, followed by a reception next door. There is also a book for those who wish to write tributes. The family plans to record this event and messages for posterity for all to cherish. Before introducing the first speaker, I would like to take advantage of the microphone to share my own thoughts and memories of Surinder. I first met Surinder more than half a century ago, in 1966 in Nairobi. He was 24 and I was 20. I just arrived from Kampala to start my university education in the University of Nairobi. And Surinder at that time was a thriving businessman, owning and operating a gas station. He was very popular among us who were students. as he gave us petrol, as we call gas everywhere else in the world, on credit and often wrote off what he owed. He was one of the most generous people I knew. I left Nairobi for studies abroad in 1970, followed by a job in Washington, D.C. But we remained good friends, meeting up during my visits regularly to Nairobi. Then one day, out of the blue, in the mid-70s, Surinder surprised me with a visit to Washington. He declared that he had moved there to settle here. And of course, the visa was not a problem for Surinder, courtesy his friends at the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi. And he wanted to buy a gas station. And he asked me to leave my job at the World Bank and join him. I told him I knew nothing about gas stations. But he persisted until a compromise solution was found. I told him my better half would join him as a partner, and I would be there behind the scenes, coming to the gas station to pump gas whenever my duties at the World Bank permitted. So Anju, my wife, became Surinder's first working partner. The rest is history. He did try to co-opt me once more, asking me to leave the World Bank and join him in his new vocation, the stock market. But again, I said I knew nothing about stocks, and asked him why the stock market. Why was he interested in the stock market? He said stocks and engines behave the same way. They went up and down, and he knew everything about that, so he had no problem. And like everything he undertook, he excelled in the stock market. Surinder was a unique human being with many endearing qualities. He had the most generous spirit, always there for you in your hour of need, especially in all things automotive and the stock market, no matter what time of day or place. His integrity and honesty came through consistently in his relationships with others. Everyone who knew him knew his great sense of humor and his always smiling face. Above all, Surinder was a family man. He was the most loving husband, father-in-law, and grandfather. For me, he was an elder brother, and my entire extended family got to know him and considered him as family too. I consider myself very fortunate to have had Surinder in my life. I learned a lot from him, benefiting enormously from his friendship and moral support. While I will sorely miss him and his physical presence, I will cherish his memories forever. Rest in peace, my dear friend. My entire family and I offer our heartfelt condolences to Pam, Amrit, Michelle, Kai, and Manjit. I would now like to invite Michelle, Surinder's daughter-in-law, to present her thoughts.
My name is Michelle, and I am married to Surinder's favorite son, Amrit. I also happen to be the maker of Surinder's only grandson, and I'm honored to stand here today. I've known Surinder for 13 years, and he's really taught me a lot through our time together. He's taught me things like "Pinipi Sankape," which in Swahili translates to, "How much is that?" He's also taught me "Hiyoki Kali Sana," which means, "Oh, that's far too expensive." Surinder has taught me more than just these tactical negotiations. He's instilled some fundamental life lessons that have really altered the way in which I view this world. and one in particular that I'd like to share with you today, in hopes that it gets instilled in you. It's a simple lesson, really, and that is to focus on what you have in common with others. Focus on finding common denominators with absolutely everybody you meet. That's it. Simple. Yet so forgettable in practice, especially in today's environment. Because it's easier to pinpoint all these differences. You talk funny, your clothes are different, you eat weird food. Who did you vote for? What kind of name is that? Where exactly are you from? I could go on. It takes a genuine interest in others to understand the substance of someone that will connect you with them. And Surinder always did that. He focused on what connected everyone. And he did that best during difficult times. I remember going to a lung appointment with Pam and Surinder, and it was just us. He completed his lung test, and it showed that he was entering into the final stages of his disease. Pam excuses herself from the room, and it's me alone with him, sitting in a chair, and I'm staring blankly at the wall, desperately looking for words and thinking that I should have done more. Surinder's at the edge of the hospital bed with his feet dangling, and he's holding this medical chart. And he smacks me out of the blue and sort of gets me out of my daze, and just to get my attention. And he has this corny sideways smile that he always sometimes gave. And he points at his medical chart to the section that labels his race, Asian. He then points at himself, he points at me, and he points between us back and forth, sort of gesturing like, hey, did you know we're the same on paper? Did you know this? That's Surinder. He had a talent for always finding what you have in common with him, especially when times were tough. I mean, Surinder's sunglasses of choice through his entire life were aviators, like Top Gun style aviators. He owns 3 passports from 3 different countries, from 3 different continents, like James Bond. He was saying Hakuna Matata in the 70s. Lion King came out in 1995. I mean, he was so original. He was so original and unapologetically himself. They don't make humans like this anymore. Now I know that Sikhs cannot be superheroes because they can't have danger as their middle name. But to me, he was a superhero. He had talents well beyond my understanding, and he has a charm that has seeped into his son that I will forever adore. And I'm eternally grateful for. Thank you.
For all the stories that I could tell, of all the moments that we shared, of all the worrying that you've done about me and that I've done about you, of all the benchmark moments that a father and daughter share, I seem to keep coming back to the memory of your hands. When I was young, the palms of your hands were flat and calloused, workmen's hands. Turning screwdrivers, tightening bolts, fixing, putting together, and taking apart. The lines on your hands were faint because the skin was so thick. Your fingers were strong too. Fingers to squeeze pliers and twist nozzles, but when you would come home, they were the hands that never seemed to burn while flipping roti on the burner. The fingers that used to reach in and wiggle my loose teeth. Your hand was the one I'd hold while crossing the street from the parking lot. Your hand was the one that gave me money and said, "Don't tell your mom or your brother." Your hands are the ones who taught me how to shift gears in my first car. Your hands also waved cars around us when I kept stalling out on the stop sign at Mason Hill. Your hands I watched in the kitchen. You used the knife to smash the garlic, slice the onions evenly and thinly. Your hands peeled the potatoes and took the skin off the chicken. Sprinkled the salt, the turmeric and cumin, and then more salt. Your hands pressed the dried methi leaves between the palms and brushed it into the pot. Your hands painted the outside of our house and the inside of our living rooms. When driving your car on a nice day, your middle finger would tap on the dashboard. Your thumb would tap along to the drumbeat. And when you were really feeling especially warm, you would call me over to compare hands. We would compare palms and fingers and hand sizes. I would look at your scars and your nails. It was your way of being close. You would look at the lines and say, "You see this line? This is your love line. It's a deep line, very strong." You would give me your hand and say, "See this? This is my lifeline. It's a little crooked. You see these here? These are money lines. Yours is long, mine is short. Can I have $10? These hands would always reach out for a friendly hand slap after telling or hearing a joke with a friend. Your wrists rarely had a watch on because it was always tea time with whoever showed up. Your time was always available. I quite literally have a lifetime of stories to tell you about my dad. My dad is who I refer to in every conversation when others ask about me or my name. He was so much a part of who I am today, standing in front of you and in front of him. It's going to take some getting used to, but in my times of loneliness and heartache, I can look down at my hands that learned so much from his because he helped shape my world with his hands.
Everybody, hear me in the back? My dad would always ask me to tell this joke as a kid to whoever would listen. So I'm going to tell it to you now, but I need you to envision me as an 8-year-old. The year is 1992, and Bill Clinton, George Bush, and Ross Perot are running for president of the U.S. The joke goes, Clinton, Bush, and Ross Perot on an airplane. Plane's going down. The pilot looks at the three of them and says, "Two of you guys need to jump out, and we don't have any parachutes." So Ross Perot looks at everybody and he says, "All right, I'll do this for my country," and he jumps out. Clinton and Bush look at each other, and after about 30 seconds, Clinton goes, "All right, fine. I'm going to do this for my country too," and pushes Bush out. My dad asked me to tell that joke maybe 500 times. Whenever we were at social situations or somebody would come up to us and say, "Hey, Umber, tell that joke." And And I would. And he would laugh just like it was the first time he was hearing it. I love being included in that part of his life. And he included me in pretty much all aspects of his life. And I think that's how he was with everybody, which is why he had a lot of friends, which is why there's a lot of people here today. We had this family joke growing up where we would go out to dinner in Old Town Alexandria, and we couldn't get through a meal, lunch, dinner, whatever, without someone recognizing him or him recognizing someone. And if he saw someone he knew, he would pop out of his chair like it was on fire. He'd run over to them and he'd say hello, he'd make a joke, he'd probably tell me to come over and tell my joke. And then that'd be it. And then afterwards he'd come back to our table and he'd say, oh, that's so-and-so, I'm fixing his Jaguar. Or that's Mrs. Cameron, she comes by every Tuesday morning for gas, even if she doesn't need gas. This is the type of thing that happened so often. As a kid, I thought to myself, is this guy the mayor of this town? Like, he knows a lot of people. So I thought this was only exclusive to Old Town Alexandria. But in 2018, we went to Nairobi, Kenya, which is where he's from. And he left there in the late 70s, so maybe almost 40 years before we went there. And he was still running into people that he knew, that remembered him. I mean, it happened a lot, considering how long it's been since he was there. I mean, for example, we were on a remote road in Tanzania in between game parks. And we randomly stopped at this African art store on the side of the road. And we run in looking desperately for souvenirs to bring back home and show everybody. He casually walks in, he asks for some tea, and starts chatting it up with the owner. Turns out, my dad knew the business owner's dad back when they lived there. And the business owner, who was a child back then, remembered my dad coming over to their house and drinking tea. I mean, it's pretty incredible. It just shows you the positive and lasting impact that he had on people. But the truly serendipitous, unbelievable part that really brings this full circle happened the day after he passed away. I was calling funeral homes to find a nice place like this that could do him, that could honor him well. And I just hung up the phone with our funeral director, Natalie. I would point to her, but I don't know where she is. And I just given her my dad's name and his information, and we hung up. She calls me back after a few minutes and she says, is your dad the Surinder Chase that owned the Liberty gas station in Old Town Alexandria? I said, yeah. Turns out Natalie's dad and Surinder, my dad, Natalie's dad owned the funeral home right next to the gas station. And my dad got to know her dad very well over the 30 plus years that he owned the reserve station. Natalie and my dad share a birthday, and for years they would talk about how they're going to celebrate, what they did, what their cake tasted like, and they got to know each other pretty well. It's almost unbelievable the amount of serendipitous connections that he made throughout his life until you realize that it happened all the time. And that's just who he was. He was a memorable guy, and he just knew how to connect with people. I realize now he wasn't the mayor of Old Town Alexandria, but I hope he considers running for office wherever he's at. I love you, Dad. Until we meet again. Now my mom to say some closing remarks.
Hello. Thank you for coming. I want to thank everyone who spoke and and King today. In concluding this service, I want to thank everyone who spoke and came today. I'd like to invite those who wish to come, take a handful of the flower petals and place them beside Surinder. It's to honor him with a traditional Sikh farewell gesture. Once you place the flowers, or not, please exit to the back of the room where we encourage you to mingle before the reception with us from Surinder's favorite restaurant, Dishes of India. We look forward to hearing your memories, and thank you all again for being here. To our family around the world, we thank you for your good thoughts.
Surinder